Hi there guys, welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host, Simon Conboy. Just wrapping up the franchise and draft review series here with the final episode final episode of the 32 teams being covered. This one focusing on the San Francisco 49ers. So if you've not seen any of these before, what I'm doing is I'm breaking down the last 10 drafts, grading the picks, going through the team's records in the last decade, any head coaching changes, highlighting playoff appearances, that stuff. And then in Friday's episode, I'm going to collate all that data, bring it all together. We'll really break down how much success teams have had in the last decade, how much that's been down to drafting, and see what conclusions we can draw. I really think it's going to be a fascinating episode. I hope you guys check that out, particularly if you enjoy this one. It will all make a lot more sense than I hope. Well, it will. I can assure you that. So, on to the Niners. Several coaching changes, of course, in the last decade. Had Mike Singletary, 2008 to 2010. Then the very successful Harbaugh era, 2011 to 2014. Then Jim Tomsula. And then for last season, Chip Kelly. So, things have gone downhill, in particular since Harbaugh. Harbaugh was like a shining light amidst a sea of bad for this franchise. They amassed 77 wins, 82 losses and 1 tie in that time frame, 2 division titles, 3 playoff appearances and a Super Bowl loss, all of that coming under Jim Harbaugh. Of course, last year's 2-14 record showing that this franchise, the bottom really does feel like it's fallen off. We'll see what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan can do to try and right the train. That's not even a saying. Oh well, it might be after this, who knows. So going into the draft, so if you've not seen one of these, again, apologies if you have, just go through it again. Draft evaluation, I'm going through each last 10 drafts, first through third rounders, grading each individual pick made there. Being a bit more strict with first rounders, of course, taking more into account specifically where they were drafted. You know, a top 10 pick's going to be graded more harshly, perhaps, than someone picked 30th overall. If they were a solid pick that the team would have been happy with, they will give +1 to the team score. If it was a fine pick, it was okay, but not overwhelming. It won't affect the score. If the player was a bust, it will be a -1. In the 4th through 7th rounds, those players tend not to contribute. A lot of them don't ever see the field in the NFL. Any that do will be designated as value picks. I'll highlight the player specifically, and they will add +1 to the team's overall score. Also in Friday's episode, I'll be going through my 10 favourite, my 10 least favourite draft classes. Going on to the Niners, the 07 class is a contender for one of my favourites. So, first round, 11th overall pick, linebacker Patrick Willis. Well, what needs to be said? Guy was an absolute beast from day one until his early retirement, which was a shame because I loved watching this guy play football. Yeah, great player. Absolutely fantastic. One of the best linebackers I've personally ever witnessed play the sport. Also in the first round, they picked up Joe Staley, the 28th overall pick, the offensive lineman. He's been superb for them, had a really good career. He was also a rock-solid pick. In the third round, they selected Jason Hill, the wide receiver. He was a bust. And Ray McDonald, the defensive end. He gave them years of solid production. He was a good player. In the 4th, Deshaun Goldson, the safety. They got good value out of him. He was a contributor for a while. Good pick there. And in the 5th, Terrell Brown, the cornerback. Another value pick. I mean, this was just a fantastic draft. 5 starters and contributors to this franchise. That's a very, very good job. Moving on to 2008, they selected defensive lineman Kenton Barmer with a 29th overall pick. He was a bust. In the 2nd, Sheila Rochelle, the guard. I don't think he was a particularly good guard when he was in the league. Has to go down as a bust. In the 3rd, Reggie Smith, the defensive back. He was also a bust. However, they did select Josh Morgan in the 6th, who was a contributor at times. I'll give them a value selection for him. Moving on to 2009, we've got Michael Crabtree, the 10th overall pick, the wide receiver. Bit of an up and down career in San Francisco. Played really well for the Raiders last year. Considering where he was picked, I'm not going to call it solid. I think he's been okay. So no effect on the grade there. In the third, Glenn Coffey, the running back, he was an absolute bust. And in the 7th, they selected Ricky Jean-Francois, the defensive lineman. Very good value in the 7th round. He was a contributor. Moving on to the 2010 draft, we've got Anthony Davis with the 11th overall pick. He's had a strange old time, retiring and unretiring. Pretty solid player, had some really good years, particularly under Harbaugh. Not quite good enough to be solid, but not a bust either. And then with the 17th pick, they selected guard Mike Upati. He's been a very, very good player throughout his time in the league. Great run blocker. That's a solid pick there. In the 2nd, they selected safety Taylor Mays. Remember that guy? Athletic freak. Turned out was not good enough for this league. He was a bust. And in the 3rd, Navarro Bowman, the linebacker. Again, one of them players, I hate when this happens, but career's been sabotaged a bit by injury in the last couple of years. Who knows how he'll come back, but regardless, they've got great production out of him. He's been a great player for them. He was a solid pick. Pretty good draft there, to be honest. 2011, 7th overall pick, Alden Smith. This is another one of them tough ones where, of course, on the field, clearly good enough to be a solid, but ended up not being with the team very long due to, bonehead moves. So I can't give him a solid for it, but he wasn't really a bust either. I'm just going to hedge it and have that balance out going to the middle. Colin Kaepernick in the 2nd. It's another similar situation. Was so good for that spell under Harbaugh, and then the wheels have come off. I'm not going to go with bust or solid there. In the 3rd, Chris Culliver, the defensive back. He's been reasonable. I was tempted to go solid, but I thought between the 3 of them, it all kind of middles out, I think. So we'll just go medium there. In 2012, wow, this was poor. 1st round pick, AJ Jenkins with the 30th overall pick. Did he do anything? Definitely didn't do anything. He was a bust. And in the 2nd, running back LaMichael James. He was also a bust. In the 2013 draft, the team selected Eric Reed with their 1st round pick, 18th overall. He's been a pretty good safety. This was a tough one. I'm tempted to go solid, but I'm not sure he's quite been good enough, but the team is really bad. I'm going to hedge my bets here. Sorry about that. I kind of want to go solid, but I'm not going to at this point. Give me another good year. You'll make it next year. In the 2nd, defensive lineman Tank Carradine, another defensive lineman called Tank, except he's not done anything to this point. He is looking like a bust. Vance McDonald, the tight end in the 2nd. This is another one that could be close to solid, but I need another year from him. Played quite well this past year. One more year and you'll crack solid. And in the 3rd, Corey Lemonnier. He's been a bust. In 2014, now bear in mind the last 3 drafts, a lot more fence sitting from me. Of course, some of these players haven't played enough for us to make a judgment at this point. If I feel strongly, however, I will give them a grade. So we've got Jimmy Ward, the defensive back, with the 35th overall pick. Not really done anything to this point, edging towards bust, but I'll sit pat. Between him and Eric Reed, I think it balances out there. In the 2nd, Carlos Hyde, the running back. He's been very good for them. He's been healthy, especially considering how bad the team around him is. So I'll have to give that one a solid. Centre Marcus Martin in the 3rd, unsure at this point. They selected Chris Borland in round 3, the linebacker who played great and then retired very early. I have to give them a solid though, because his performance on the field justified the selection. They can't. I might potentially blame a team if a player decides what is a knucklehead and it's known beforehand that that's potentially an issue with them. Character risk and stuff, because the team can evaluate it. This was a very different situation where he just decided to retire early. I guess he became worried about health issues and such, which is fair enough, each their own. Can't grade the team down for it though. I will give them a solid there because, as I say, he was great. And the 3rd, Brandon Thomas, the offensive lineman. He's done nothing to this point. Our O-line's not great. I have to say bust at this stage. Maybe a bit harsh, but And in the 5th, Aaron Lynch, the pass rusher. I think he's been solid. He will go down as a value selection. 2015, Arik Armstead was the 1st round pick, 17th overall. 8-8 they finished. Yeah, it sounds about right. My handwriting's terrible, my apologies. He's been fine to this point, not enough to convince me yet that it's solid. Doesn't look like it's going to be a bust, but not enough for me to say they nailed that pick at this stage. Strong safety, Jaquiski Tart in the second, similar there, and same with Eli Harold in the third. Much the same story with last year's draft. Forrest Buckner at 7th overall. Again, I think he'll be a good one, but can't say for sure at this point. Similar with guard Joshua Garnett, who was considered a huge reach at 28, but we'll find out. Sometimes those reach term, is a flawed term. Travis Frederick would, he'd agree with me there, I'm sure. And in the third, cornerback Will Redmond. So not an enormous amount of productivity, especially considering how great that 2007 draft was. That's really boosted this overall grade for this team. It comes out a mere +1 total. It would explain sort of why this roster is currently so threadbare. I mean, they're very poor at a number of positions. Only 7 solid picks in that time frame, 5 value. There's a lot I'm on the fence about with regards to their most recent drafts. We'll see how they turn out. However, with their first, I've got 3 solid and only 2 busts. There's a lot of mediocrity there. Players that haven't really contributed. That could have really boosted the grade. 5 values, not bad. Only 11 busts. It's just there's been so many players that haven't done quite enough. If these last few drafts pan out, it will really affect this grade, because at the minute it just sits at +1, which is at the lower end. Just not enough really impact starters coming out of 49ers drafts in the last 10 years. So, what do you guys think? Have you enjoyed the series so far? As I said, check out tomorrow's episode. It will all come together in one glorious, entertaining, informative lump of episodes. Really looking forward to it. Hope you guys enjoy that one and check that out as well. If you got any comments on the series or this particular episode, if you think I was too harsh, too kind with some of the grades, give us a shout, whether it's below in the comments section, on the Cover Zero Facebook, you can follow me on Twitter. I'll do my best to get back to absolutely everybody who makes an effort to contact me. It's always appreciated when people do. If you've enjoyed this one, check out some more. Did free agency reviews last week. I think they turned out pretty well. It's been an absolute pleasure. Like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon, all that good stuff. It's all thoroughly appreciated. Thank you very much for giving me your time. Pleasure as always. Have a good day and go Bucks.